Hi, my name is Kieran. I'm one of the partners here with H2R CPA. In my role with the firm, I work with many of our privately held business clients, helping them to meet and understand their financial goals and objectives. But today, I'm here to talk about the Payroll Protection Program, also known as PPP. We've helped advise many of our clients through the initial application phase and now helping to understand the forgiveness applications that are and will be due soon for most companies. I'd like to spend a few moments today just talking about the program in general, how we got here, and what we expect. The rules have changed throughout, and there are still many unanswered questions, but we have some assumptions based on the direction things are going. So I'd like to just spend a few moments today talking about those. If we think back to the initial application phase and the start of the program, the Treasury really rushed this out. They were well intended, and the spirit of the CARES Act was meant to give small businesses a relief in order to keep their employees and keep as many employees off of unemployment as possible so that when business returned to usual, you would still have your workforce. But if we all recall, the initial application phase was a bit of a disaster. The Treasury released the application before most banks were ready to even accept it. Most banks didn't understand what that process was. Some applications were accepted, and then the application changed. The rules were changing. There was just a ton of confusion as to what was meant. But I think the spirit of the law was clear. It was meant for the money to be used to retain employees. And I think that's something that people need to think about throughout this process, because there's been a lot of changes and a lot of public perception, and that has dictated some of what the Treasury and the Senate and the politicians in general have had to say about the program. So initially, after the first round of funding was quickly exhausted within the first week of the program, there was public outcry that many public companies got some money. Things like Steak Shack, Ruth Chris's, things like that were in the national news. And at that time, there wasn't much other news to cover. So these things were big headline stories. And so you had the politicians and other people at that point getting on their soapboxes and talking about how those people would be punished and the program wasn't meant for that. But there was really never any teeth in the program to do that. The certifications up front were pretty weak, and there wasn't a lot of definition around them. So at that point, the Treasury said, hey, if you were these type of companies, you have an amnesty period to get the money back, and some did. The second round of funding went out, and a lot of it wasn't used. There's still unused money today. The perception around the program seemed to have quieted down a bit. Now, Congress is looking at potentially, with the next round of stimulus, even forgiving all loans that are under $150,000. Recently, names have been released of companies that received the PPP funding. So again, you're seeing more perception around who took the money and did they deserve the money. Putting aside the public perception issues and what may or may not happen in the next round of Congress for a second, I think it is clear that the Treasury and the SBA have tried to make the program, and especially applying for forgiveness, easier through the actions they've had the last several weeks. The initial forgiveness application was about 11 pages, and it was quickly followed a few days later by a easy forgiveness application, which was cut down to about 3 pages. And this limited the amount of information that was needed, and a lot of that was around the full-time equivalents. Also, it's clear that the banks do not want to be the judge on this. They're going to be putting these packages together based on the information that the SBA is asking for and then submitting it to the SBA. But the banks don't want to sit across the table from their customers and argue about what should or shouldn't be included, or have to be the judge as to what is or isn't forgiven. So this process will start to get easier, I believe. I think as we've talked to more of the banking institutions that work with our clients, they're targeting maybe mid-July for when they're ready to accept these applications. I've been told that some banks will have their platforms ready now as early July, but they're still not exactly sure what those look like. So and my advice would be, I don't want to be the first person in line for forgiveness. I would let them work out some of these kinks and understand the process a little bit better. Several banks are also going back and trying to understand all the information that was needed on the initial application, getting that package cleaned up, and then reaching back out to their customers to understand what they need to put together for forgiveness. So I think in general, the program was initially rushed out very hurriedly. It had good intentions. It was met with mixed perception in the press, and I think some of that was just not understanding which kind of companies got the money. But those things aside, if you look at what the SBA and the Treasury are issuing and what they've done, they're trying to make it an easier process. I don't think anybody wants to have these loans on their books for much longer than they have to. So the banks want to have them forgiven so that they can write them off. The SBA wants to have them forgiven so that they can get through them. Now, the SBA came out quite a while ago and said that they weren't sure what their audit process would look like for this, that they weren't going to have the resources to really dig into these very much. They threw out a kind of a threshold of $2 million and said that they were really only going to audit ones over $2 million. And they're not even sure what audit means. So with the fact that some loans under $150,000 might be forgiven based on the next round of stimulus, the bank is still figuring out their process for accepting these applications. You really do have 10 months to apply for forgiveness from the time that your covered period ends. And there's still some discussion with the covered period. Initially, it was 8 weeks. It was changed to 24 weeks. I think most of our clients said that they really could have used the money in about 10 to 12 weeks and are not sure what's going to happen with their full-time equivalent headcounts at the 24-week period. Some of those things are still up in the air, although it's making it sound more clearly now like you are able to apply for forgiveness once your funds are depleted, even if that's after 10 or 12 weeks. But again, that's not fully clear yet, and I think the banks are still working that process out. So going forward, I would take kind of a wait and see approach with this. You have time. You also don't have to select the period right now. I would let the banks kind of get their process underway a little bit better. Let them tell you what it is that they need and work with your institution to really understand the process. And again, I wouldn't want to be the first one because maybe the SBA is going to be looking a little harder at some of those, or just at first not sure exactly what documents are needed, and then you're going to have to go back into it. So I think the overall approach on forgiveness is to take a bit of a wait and see attitude. I know most clients want to get forgiven and get these things cleaned up and off their books so they can move on with doing business. But again, I wouldn't rush to do something until they have the process ready for you. So I appreciate everyone's time today. I hope you have a safe and enjoyable rest of the summer, and that at some point we're back to more of a life as normal. In the meantime, if you have any questions, anything on the PPP program, the forgiveness application, or anything else that we can help you with, please don't hesitate to contact me or any one of your H2R representatives. And thanks again for your time.